because it's a bonus episode of the Collider Witching Hour. We have a full spoiler review of Netflix's The Haunting of Hill House for you. Before we get into it, I'm Perri Nemroff. This is Haleigh Fouch, my wonderful co-host.
Hello.
Thank you for making me watch this. Thank you for making me binge it in its entirety.
I'm so glad you did.
It was such a good time talking non-spoilers for Hill House that we knew the second that episode wrapped that we had to do a spoiler-heavy episode as well. And it just took a little time, but I caught up. I binged. So we were talking in our regular main episode about me sitting on the couch for the entirety of Sunday and watching 4 John Carpenter movies back to back to back to back. And what I did with the second half of Hill House is basically when I got home from work on Friday, I just watched the other ones of them. I think it was something like a total of 5, because I think I was texting you most of the way through.
Yeah.
As I was updating, and I think I started by telling you that I thought episode 6 was a masterpiece.
That's correct.
Okay, so I watched half the season in one night, and I'm glad I did. Do you want to kick us off? I know you have strong feelings about spoilery stuff here.
I do, but most of my strong feelings come down to the final 2 episodes. I mean, I would love to also, because I think we only talked about the first 3 last time we talked about it, and I think that really special stuff, as I mentioned, happens in the first 6 episodes.
That it does.
I think build and coalesce and then just come together in that 6th episode so brilliantly. And I remember last time you were like, are we going to care about Luke? So.
Oh, my. He's great.
Yes.
He's really, really good. And just, it was the combination, too, because I think, what is episode 4 called? Is that the twin thing? And then it's the bent neck lady. And then it's my favorite episode of the entire season here. But I think the combination of having Luke's episode and then Nell's episode back to back had just a really powerful effect. But his story is heartbreaking.
Yes.
And that's the thing about Hill House overall, is it isn't just a scary story and then you move on from it. And I think that's something that all horror movies and TV benefit from embracing, the idea of it's not just, oh, I survived the night and I wipe my hands clean and then I'm off to do life. It's something that sticks with you, and the whole idea of Hill House too, and how Luke and Nell are more open to it and the effect it had on them for that reason.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see him essentially deteriorate, and it's almost like a 1-2 punch too, because then they give you the relationship and they give you the reveal of what he was really trying to do when he was robbing Steve, and it hurt. It really hurt.
It's a very hurtful show.
Yeah.
I love those episodes man, I can't even say, but 3, 4, 5, 6, because starting with Theo's episode was when I was like, oh, I've got a problem. I'm obsessed with the show. I'm like dangerously obsessed.
I think I had it with 2.
Yeah. That's Shirley's?
Yeah.
She's a little off-putting for me, but I
understand.
understand.
I find her off-putting, but I think it's because I see a lot of similarities where like she's like the neat, orderly, like put together one, and there were certain things about her that I could really connect with. So I think that episode spoke to me a lot.
But you don't tell everybody what to do all the time.
No, I don't. I probably do the opposite. I think I just yes people to death.
You could tell a few more people what to do, just not me.
Okay.
I love Theo. I said last time she's like I love her. And then I really did love Luke and Nell, and you feel like you want to protect them both, especially when they're so cute as kids. But what I love about the execution of those 2 episodes is the way the ghosts are used in particularly dark moments for both characters. So, like, the best chills and goosebumps and scares I got in the whole...
You made a word, too.
Goosebumps. The whole series came in those 2 episodes, which were... there were a number, but one is when he's got the tall man with the hat following him wherever he goes, and you realize that that's why he uses, is because he can't get rid of this thing that's haunting him. And it's a not subtle but very effective allegory for trauma, that you can't get rid of this thing that follows you, and the more sober you get, the closer it comes. And that's very effective, and it was done visually in a way that I thought really translated that well to people who might never have had addiction problems inspired by grief and trauma. and definitely gave me chills. But the scares in her episode.
Yeah.
So particularly naturally the one pertaining to sleep paralysis when her husband dies.
Yeah. So it's like, remember when I was like, I wonder what that feels like? No, I don't anymore. That scene, that really got me. And it's just how well woven that is into her life in terms of, you know, why she goes through things like that to begin with, but then also the idea of her finding love through it and then basically having that love ripped away so violently. Yeah. That makes it even more devastating. And she is fantastic. Victoria Pedretti.
Yes.
Wow.
I know.
Because not just in that episode, pretty much every single point after that when Nell comes up, she just freaking powerhouses her way through those episodes.
She's kind of throw herself at the wall in this role, and she really does. And like I think I mentioned last time, she's not somebody I'd ever heard of or seen before, really. Mm-hmm. And whoa.
And the thing is, too, that I think Nell is probably the most important character for the entirety of this show with what she does step by step through every single episode. And the crazy thing is, it's like, you think she's just dead and gone so early on, and then it's not that. And she pretty much guides everybody throughout the rest of the show, for better or worse. I mean, that was the other thing that really got me about her story, is that essentially she killed herself. Like, that's crazy to me, that she...
What do you mean? So that she went to the house?
It's basically what they explain towards the end of the show, where, you know, like, time isn't what we think in Hill House. It's like time folding onto each other.
Well, she did literally kill herself.
No, yeah, I don't mean like by the hanging.
Got
I mean
you.
just this idea of the character of Nell, young and old Nell, being caught in a time loop of sorts, where she's trying to warn her younger self, don't do this, it's bad for you. But then by doing that, she draws herself back to the house, and it's basically this inevitable truth that she's heading towards.
I know, it's very haunting, and I think we talked about, you said you didn't find it particularly surprising when you watched it, and I didn't find it surprising. I haven't seen a lot of things where the twist is that you're haunting yourself, but I have seen it before.
I was specifically talking about, when did you pick up on the fact that Nell was the bent neck lady?
Right, so I think it was during her episode.
Yeah.
Not before that, but it was after the husband died I started to put it together. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's just so heartbreaking, and I think it's a special kind of scare because it's a mindfuck scare, which is like, at first you're like, how does that even work? But then she kind of explains it away at the end, you know, like, memories fall like snow around you and things like that. Like, time doesn't work the way we think it works, and especially not in Hill House.
I thought it was a good dose of exposition, though, because it paints such a haunting but beautiful picture.
Yeah, and I just I never read it necessarily that she was warning herself, but that maybe this was something that was beset upon her, that happened to her, that when she dies, part of the added horror is this, she has to flip through her timeline and see all these points where she maybe could have changed her life but didn't, all her worst memories, and like, maybe she is warning herself. It's not how I interpreted it. I think I interpreted it much more sinister, just like this was far beyond her control.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the thing about Hill House overall, too, is there's a lot of things that, you know, give you something to think about that aren't necessarily point-blank answered.
Yes.
I mean, even the idea that by the time we get to the end of this season, they never explain why Hill House is evil at all.
No.
But it's not something that I ever felt like I needed. It happened to have been a thought that crossed my mind after the fact, but I personally, at this point in time, with the idea of this being a limited series and we're not getting any more, I'm fine with that.
I am and I'm not. We'll dig into this more when we talk about the final episode. But I think a lot of shit doesn't make sense when you poke it a little bit because they didn't answer anything.
Okay, because I think the thing I ran away with most was that this was a story specifically about the family.
Sure.
More so than it was about the house.
Okay, so I'll just, it doesn't matter. We don't have to do our spoilers in chronological order.
We're already there.
Yeah. So the legacy is passed on from father to son. He now has to take care of the house, hold the secret, hold the line, whatever. But, like, that's stupid and doesn't make any sense because they're just supposed to live the rest of their life knowing that like their mom and their father and their sister in that house, and they're never gonna go back, sure, and like that's ridiculous.
The way I interpreted that is that, you know how Hugh technically sacrifices himself at the end?
Yeah.
I don't think that was entirely his own doing. I mean, they've already proven the point that the house can manipulate people, make them see things, make them do things. So I think it's the house at work here. Like, I think it's partially the house has its claws in these individuals that it adds on. It's like, yes, the Dudleys are desperate for the house to stay standing so they could keep visiting their daughter, but I think it's a mix of them having been affected by the house plus them having human feelings and wanting to see their ghost daughter if that option is available to them. And I think the same thing happened. I think the house gave Hugh that little nudge at the end.
I would buy that. Maybe I'm conflicted, but that also, so that just cuts the happy ending, like, which I don't like anyway.
I think it's bitter. I think it's a bittersweet ending.
Well, because basically that means they're all fucked in a few years anyway. So I don't see the point of a sentimental ending like that if you won't commit to it, for one thing. And he said multiple times that it's supposed to be like it is supposed to be like a salve and make you feel better, and it doesn't. It makes me feel angry. Like
that's like I think that's the beautiful contradiction of the idea of Hill House, is that you go through it, especially, this is why I think the ending episodes worked so well for me. You go through it being able to feel the satisfaction of Hugh basically getting to have conversations with Liv, as disturbing as it is and as wrong as it may seem. The fact that she's there guiding him, you could feel the warmth there, and you could feel the security that he must feel having her there. But then deep down, you know that by having her there, like, something is wrong.
He's
the show never loses the feeling that Hill House is evil.
Well, so was that Hill House though? Because he kind of said that he was just doing it himself. That like he knew, and he just liked having her as a person to talk to.
So the way this is like another thing that isn't completely black and white, but the way I was reading it is that it was possibly just him doing that, and she, like, as in the version of Liv that was able to open the door to the Red Room, was basically relegated to Hill House. But that was another example of the effects of Hill House going on with some, like, he had that condition because of the house.
Yeah. Probably.
Basically, everyone had their own, some sort of condition because of their experience there.
I guess if you look at it from the perspective that it's coming to get you anyway, then I feel a little more okay with the ending, because part of my big problem was that trauma doesn't cure trauma. And so, like, you can't just be like, well, we went through this horrible thing together, and our father killed himself after our sister and our mother killed themselves, and we spent all season talking about how horrible that is. Yeah. But we're fine now.
Well,
that makes me very angry, and that's, like, totally pulling a Silver Linings playbook, and I'm not cool with it.
I think I disagree with that, because I didn't feel that. There's something about that really beautiful image of them all happy at the end that made me, in a similar way that I was just describing, it made me like want to reach out and grab that love and that warmth that I could see there. Mm-hmm. But I also am so well aware, because I spent so long with this family in the episodes that came before it. Like, I know the evil that lurks underneath. It's almost like Hill House itself, where, some of it, when it's all cleaned up, it can look nice and beautiful, but the Red Room's still there. The black mold is still behind the walls that you might not be able to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, if you're thinking, like, that eventually, I don't know, the mental illness is going to come back, then that works a little better for me, because you don't get to use your ghosts as an allegory for mental illness and then be like, they're gone now.
I know.
So maybe if I think about it that way, but then I'm not sure that was the intention, because he's talked about how they almost made it so that there was a Red Room window in the background of that scene where they're all happy together, like just right in the back of the room. But he felt that it was too cruel, and he wanted them to have a happy ending.
Oh, was that the ending thing that was kind of making the rounds?
The alternate ending.
I had spent so long trying to avoid all of that I never actually opened the little folder in my browser where it saved all those links.
I guess there were a number of different endings considered along the way. Yeah. Like, they were going to burn it down for a while. The big one was there was going to be the Red Room window, which that would have worked really well for me.
I was going to say, I kind of like that touch.
Yeah, that would have worked perfectly, and it would have made it not feel so saccharine.
Ooh. No, actually, Yeah, but if it was as in they're in the red room.
They're all dead.
Oh no, I don't like that. No,
but
I take it back.
If your belief is that it's all coming back for them in the end anyway, then why is it better?
Need that?
Why wouldn't she just want them to all be little happy ghosts together in the red room?
Because I definitely wouldn't want. I don't know. I think maybe I don't want that because I've already liked what I got.
Yeah.
Because now that I'm trying to just like play it through, because that is where I thought it was heading at the end. I thought they were basically all going to just be happy living in Hill House together. Huh. That is where I thought they were going.
Real gutsy.
That's where I thought they were going, and they were just all going to die and kind of be there. And yeah.
I never for a second they'd have the guts to do that. Really? Yeah, I'm impressed that you have that much faith in in storytelling.
Yeah. But I did think that they could have gone there for like a hot second, and they all just live in this warped happily ever after thing together. And I'm kind of glad that they didn't do it, and they wound up having one foot in both worlds, because that's what I think enhanced the bittersweet quality. Where when I walked away from it, part of me wanted to just say, also because one of the greatest successes of this show, I think, is that family of characters, a family that I basically fell in love with. Yes. And I wanted to spend all the time in the world with them. Not just the big moments where we could see, the big things that Hill House is affecting them with. But I mean, I just want to sit with them while they have a family dinner or something, things like that. And having that feeling and getting that ending, it was part of me wanted to see. Part of me wanted them to announce a season 2, even if it was just, any old day in the Crane family's life. And they basically did nothing for an entire season, but I could spend more time with these characters. And at the same time, it's this other feeling, knowing that all this evil is still part of them to some extent.
Yes, I like your read on it. I just don't believe that I agree it's present in the finale itself. I think the finale itself intends to be very happy and saccharine, and it doesn't work so much for me. Things don't make sense either. Like the fact that she was even able to open the red door room totally is ridiculous, because the house is very much more powerful than one of the ghosts in it based on everything we've seen. So why would that suddenly be? Why would the evil 1920s ghost lady just leave someone alone when she told them to, when she's just evil? How can you get rat poison injected into you
and survive
and cough up some blood?
Okay, that was one that crossed my mind. Didn't seem possible.
I have issues, but
yeah, the red room thing I think I bought just because kind of like I said before, they never explain Hill House. They never even try to explain the origins and exactly what Hill House is capable of. And I think that's a major thing for all the characters, even the Dudleys too, that they don't really fully understand it. So I think the fact that Olivia could open and close the red room door worked for me just because of what they had already solidified in her character, in her being in the red room and her being in control of that situation at the table with the three of them. Yeah. So that when she did it later on, I felt it, because she was basically, the house seemed to me to be using her to lure the rest of her family into the room. So if the house needed to use her to get them in there in the first place, then she would have the power to let them out eventually.
Maybe. That's a stretch for me. All right. But I like that you feel that way, because I wish I was satisfied by the ending. I have a lot of problems. I listed 5, but I've got a lot. And I don't get... I get what he's saying. Yeah. You can't build walls. So, that's the whole point of the finale. It's to live your life, you have to tear down your walls. That's why, Stephen is, ready to go back to his wife and have babies or whatever, and Shirley is willing to confess to what she did, and why Theo takes off her gloves and is moving out with her girlfriend. But also, yeah, right. That's just not how people work. You don't go from being terrified of intimacy your whole life to let's move in, sweetheart, and when I touch things, I see visions of rape and murder, but let me throw these gloves away. That seems very unrealistic to me.
Yeah.
I love the sentiment, don't build walls. It's very nice, but it seems silly.
I think of all of them, I bought Steve's ending
Yeah.
I definitely think that, especially him having gone through life basically walling himself off from Hill House and not fully understanding like some of the other family members did, given what he experiences in that last episode, I think that's a forceful nudge forward for him to do what he does at the end.
So I buy that, but I don't buy his wife, who has had like nothing to do with him all season, suddenly being comforting mom.
I wish we had been part of that conversation, especially when they acknowledge it at the beginning, and it doesn't turn out to be what it really is. But when they make that point there, I did think that it was going to conclude.
Points.
I did think it was going to conclude with us being able to witness that actual conversation.
Yeah.
Shirley, I definitely bought too, because it seemed like it was so out of left field. Like, I had gotten so comfortable with this character who always did what she thought was the right thing, and then all of a sudden you see her do something wrong, and I understood her need to confess that. The one that crossed the line a little too much for me was Theo. I was mad when she took off the gloves and she put them in the trash. All you needed to do was have her leave with the girlfriend, and I would have been like, that's a reasonable step forward for that character. Because also, I mean, that's an ability that she has regardless, right?
Yep.
Like, who knows who she could possibly touch and what horrifying things she could see.
I mean, really. Again, lovely idea. Don't put up walls. And it was her mother who told her to build a wall and gave her those gloves. So I get that thematically it's thorough, but it's also ridiculous.
There was more to it than that for her, though.
And that's the thing. Like, their family's gifts aren't inherently tied to Hill House, as the mother explained. Like, that has run in their family before. So this goes with them no matter what.
Which would have been a nice touch for them to keep the gloves.
Yes. And would have been a nice way to acknowledge that they weren't just talking about ghosts. They were talking about mental illness and things like that. Because then when Steven suddenly wants to have a baby or whatever, like, all his concerns about mental illness were still very viable. And it is viable to decide to live your life going, I don't want to pass on my genes to a poor child. It's not okay to not tell your wife that and marry someone and take away their options. But that's a reasonable life choice. And if I just feel like to me, it just feels like the finale's trying to say everything's fine now. Like, we're not all crazy anymore. Nobody here's sick. Like, the only person I think really earned it is Luke, who did do the therapy, did do the time to change his life. And we saw struggle with that addiction through really tough stuff this season.
Yeah.
Everyone else just feels like they're like, yeah, but I'm fine now.
No, I get it. I definitely read into it in a different way.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying.
I'm glad it worked for you, though. Like, I wanted to love it all the way through so much because I loved the first 6, 7, even 8 episodes so much.
Episode 6 is, I think episode 6 is my favorite episode of television I've seen all year. I am just, like, astounded by the technical achievement and the performance achievement. I mean, really, everything across the board. Because it's, I had read a little bit about Hill House before watching the entire thing, so I knew some non-spoilery details, which of course included, like, this crazy episode that's shot in X amount of shots.
Right.
Like that. Like, I kind of knew, but I don't think it was on the forefront of my mind when I queued it up. And so when it started, I'm like, holy shit, this is that episode.
It's the one.
And it's used to great effect, too, where it doesn't feel like a gimmick. It's like the whole point of that is to tie all the characters together and watch them all, like, pass the baton, and also really enhance the idea of what they basically state at the end, which is what Hill House does to time. And it so seamlessly passes it back and forth between the two time periods.
It's really beautiful. I almost wish that people, and I know that's not how the internet works, but, like, hadn't made such a big deal out of it, because I would have liked to have watched it without thinking about the shots first and just experienced the emotional impact of how it was shot, instead of being like, oh, this is the one where they do the thing.
That once it crossed my mind and I was aware of it for a little while, I will say that it went away.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't specifically looking for that the rest of the episode. I was just consumed by it.
Yeah, there were points, though, there I was like, oh, they did the thing. Like, oh, that was a good way to do that, And I don't know that I would have been distracted by that if it hadn't been pointed out to me. But, like, oh, wow, it sucks. That's the internet. Like, I'm fine. I just wish I had the purity of experiencing that episode just as they emotionally intended it to basically manipulate you with camera work, having not had the camera work pointed out to me ahead of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's so brilliant. I love I love that it was written so that their behavior fits exactly with their characters, but is also so surprising. I don't think anybody there did what I thought they were going to do in that episode, except for Steven, who's a pain. But like, you know,
really don't like Steven.
He does horrible things to the people he claims to care about the most.
He does. He's a bit of a jerk.
He grew on me, but he just like is really self-serving, and that does, when you've got a family full of awesome people, he does not appeal to me. The father did not behave in that episode the way I thought he was going to.
No, yeah. I found what was going on with him super interesting.
He was great and surprising. Shirley didn't act like I thought she was going to.
No.
She was controlling, but in a different way than I thought she would be. I mean, I thought it was just really well written on top of the technical elements of performance and camera work, you know?
Her thing really got me. This was one of the experiences she goes through that I think I really identified with. This idea of, you know, like, you say something that seems so like right versus wrong to you, and you put it out there and you make it a thing. And then when somebody goes against it, especially someone you really care about, it's almost like your brain can't compute it. Your brain just can't get past it. It's like no, you're wrong. Because like really in any family, that's how fights kind of escalate and eventually blow out of proportion, is this idea of like no, in my mind it's this or that, and if you go against this, it's like, well, why can't you understand? And it's just about, you know, coming to the point eventually where you can kind of understand both sides of it. But in that moment, I totally get when she's just like no, screw you all, no.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the problem for me towards the end, is that it feels so realistic up until that point. Like, I know there's ghosts and boo, but like it really feels, those moments feel so authentic and like really true to human behavior. And just like you were saying, that makes complete sense, and it feels very honest to her character. And I love those parts of the show where they excel at just integrity of character, which I think is, for 8 episodes, one of the show's greatest highlights is this integrity to character. Even in episode 8, you know, everybody's favorite jump scare.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm glad I hadn't read a single thing about that, because I think that was the first jump scare I've seen all year, maybe, that got a super, not even just an audible reaction, but I will tell you that, you know, I have the loft space.
Yeah.
I might have poked my head in the loft space before I went to bed that night, and I'm pretty sure it was connected to that specific moment.
I don't blame you. I mean, I woke up last night in the middle of the night and had a visual of Nell cutting her own jaw open on the table from episode 9, and I was like, shake it out, you gotta go back to sleep. But that jump scare is also done with such integrity to character, which is why it's such a phenomenal jump scare. And I don't believe, we discussed this a little the other night, but like, I don't believe that Shirley and Theo would have had the conversation they needed to have if Nell didn't interject like that. So that is just like really terrifying at first, but really sweet afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of it speaks to, in a way, my reaction to the thing overall is like, especially with Steve, the intensity of that experience at the end. It's almost like jump-starting a change in him. So that's part of the reason why I could believe that would happen, because I believed it in that smaller moment, and then I kind of believed it at the end when a lot of them change.
No, I believe that he changed, and like, I'm not saying he's an unforgivable, irredeemable character. I'm just saying that his point not to pass on your genes if you think you will make your child sick is valid. And I agree that he could totally change after all that, but I also think that like getting rid of the gloves seems to suggest that there wasn't something with them always, that it was made by the house.
Again, that was the one that didn't quite work for me. But I will say her meltdown in that scene in episode 8 was...
She's so good.
She is so good.
Yeah.
Like, how is she not like a bigger star right now? I don't
we'll
understand.
See after this.
Maybe.
Netflix has huge reach.
I mean, do we know what the deal is? Is it really going to be a limited series, or is this a situation where the success and the popularity is through the roof to such an extent that they'll find a way to continue it?
I think that there's been discussion of anthology style, and really like this idea that I saw on Reddit, and I can't remember the name of the person who said it.
Okay, so, but you can still tell us.
Yes. Yes, but I just feel bad taking someone else's idea without saying that it's not my idea.
Which is totally reasonable, but I need to hear this idea.
So they were, in the book, the Shirley Jackson novel, doesn't have anything to do with these people. It's a completely different story about strangers coming to the haunted house to do a thing. And in that story, there is, tales of families that were haunted there before. And somebody was saying that, like, this was more of a prequel situation and that maybe we'll actually see a more, loyal to the book adaptation in future seasons where we follow strangers into the house after we've seen the Crane family live there. Huh. And I like that idea.
I'm semi-open to that idea. I'm actually a really big fan of the anthology format in general, especially when you have a really good idea at the center of it, which I think this does. But also, I think above all else, one of the main reasons why I am obsessed with The Haunting of Hill House and want more of it is because I love the Crane family.
I agree.
And I am afraid that if the continuation takes them out, and it wouldn't entirely take them out if Steve, but it wouldn't guarantee that they're the main characters, and then I don't know if I'd be as interested.
I understand, but if they are going for anthology, I like that approach, that then they would try to do something closer to the book. I also, what do you want? Do you want to see them go through hell again if you're so happy to see them happy at the end?
No, but see, I'm not. It's not about me being super happy to see them living happily ever after. It's that push-pull between seeing them being happy, but also the underlying evil that's still there. And knowing that, I mean, really, it actually speaks to the mental illness thing. It's like you can find, I don't know if I'm using the right words, but like improvement or relief, but it's still there, and it's a battle that'll never go away that you learn to manage.
Right.
So I think I would be interested in seeing, the next stage for them with that.
I guess that would make me happier than the ending we received. Like if they actually had to work through it, I'd want to see that. But I don't know. I think their tale was really well told, except for the ending, which again doesn't kill the series for me. So I don't know. I might be happier seeing, and I think it might be a bolder storytelling move to work new people into this system where we know some of the Cranes have to be there. Mm-hmm. They're there.
Yeah.
Of course, all my favorites wouldn't be, but.
I know.
Well, no,
that's what I started to think about.
But that's okay. We're almost out of time, and I know, and I'm not trying to be the world's most negative person because I do love the show, but also the idea that Nell, who had like the most fucking traumatic life and died in the most horrible way in this house, is supposed to be like happy little sweetheart dancing around, helping her siblings at the end, like happy with mom and dad. That
again, I don't read that as being purely happy. I think we see happy, but it's almost like the whole idea of like ignorance being bliss. It's almost like a fake form of happiness, going off and being able to live happy forever in Hill House the way that Liv is presenting it to them. It's like she's dancing around the hallway and we see the reality of her dancing around a decrepit building, but really what she's seeing is her own happy. So it's like
but her life was so terrible, so what's the difference? Why she is happy now?
Was it totally terrible, though?
Except for when her husband was around, it was pretty rough, man.
I mean, as far as what we see, I guess. I mean, I certainly don't get the impression that all the Crane children, after they left Hill House, had miserable lives through and through.
Interesting. I think they were all pretty miserable when the season starts.
I think
Shirley has children, so obviously she's found a way to cope with the trauma that she went through, but I think the point is that they're all pretty fucked up when it starts.
I think they're definitely all fucked up, but I also don't think that means the entirety of their lives were doom and gloom. Like, no. I think they do, like, I think the fact that Theo and Shirley live together is kind of a sign that they have something special. I think the fact that Theo went and she got her PhD and she can help these children, I think that brings a sense of joy to her life. I think in between Luke's descents into addiction, I think there was probably something good there too, because he never lost that sibling vibe, that love for Nell. So I think the two of them definitely brought some sense of joy to each other's lives.
Yeah. Until he made her buy him heroin.
Well, yeah.
Which was another incredible use of ghosts in an emotionally traumatic scene. That was so good.
Yeah. It's a whole lot of ups and downs for these characters.
These poor Cranes.
And then we didn't even talk about the Dudleys all that much, but I wanted to give Annabeth Gish and Robert Longstreet a shout out too, because like I think his speech with the black mold was something else, and her work just as it pertained, because that was another instance where when their daughter died, I was so on edge because I didn't know how they were going to react in that moment. Yeah. And then to see her performance in that moment, I think really kind of sold the decision making and planted that idea in my head as to why you can't burn Hill House down, and made me buy it. Yes, I agree with that. I think if this was going to be one series only, my dream ending would have been that they did burn it down, and that the idea was that you would have to, there'd be a cost to move on from your past almost, that you have to give it up in order to move on. Or I'm not expressing that well, but you can't move on if you have to fucking check on the haunted house all the time. But anyway, their reaction was so false to me. They're like, yes, her reaction immediately was great, and it's not on the actors, who are fantastic, but also that they were like, it's cool, we can cover all this up. They weren't even like angry. Well, they were desperate. Yeah. Like in that moment, he was going to burn the house down. If they didn't approach it with some sort of like warmth and sincerity, he could have easily just been like, fuck it all, and gotten rid of it. Yeah, I guess that maybe helps. But I was like, ooh, you guys are awful cool with this whole dead daughter in your arms thing. Well, they were also well aware of the shit going down in that house. So I did believe that. I love the reveal of the Red Room, too. Like, what the Red Room was. It was nice. I felt really stupid for not noticing the freaking mirror. Yeah. Or not the mirror, the window. That's the one that I felt a little silly about. Damn it, Haleigh. It's a lot of that stuff made a whole lot of sense. And, really, after all this, I can't wait to go back and rewatch it and find all the things that I missed. Because I know everybody out there has been releasing like videos and articles, all the ghosts you miss, and it's like I haven't touched any of that yet. Ooh. So I can't wait to dig in and find all the stuff. Yeah, I've looked at some of the pictures, but to be honest, I just my eye brain stuff is not the kind to catch that thing in the background. Okay. So I've even rewatched scenes like, where's the ghost gonna be? And I never see them. I have to look up the screenshots. Oh, I can't wait to do it. All right, I think we should wind this down now before we get kicked out of the podcast room. I'm so glad we did this. I'm so glad you made me watch this so quickly because now I'm so satisfied and I want more. It's really hard to love a show and then have it be over. It's not fair. It's not fair. But it is fair, because then it's like you don't want them to keep it going and then ruin it. I know. Well, see, I'm really happy for you, because you have this pure love for it that you get to keep right now, as long as they don't come back and screw it up. But like I have a very pure love for 6 episodes. I have a very strong love for 3 more of them. And then I have a lot of, we didn't even get to episode 9, which I have a lot of mixed feelings about. I'd very concisely say I don't think you need spooky 1920s ghost lady to make this story work. But I regret nothing. I would binge watch it again 1,000,000 times. It's so worth it, even if you do, like me, find the ending disappointing. All right. Well, there it is, guys. That is our spoiler discussion of The Haunting of Hill House. Thank you guys so much for listening to this bonus episode. Haleigh, where can everyone find you on the internet? You can find me on Collider.com, where we have lots of content about Haunting of Hill House, including some interviews that'll be going up this week with the cast. We have Ending Explained, in case you need a little help with that. I will read that. Yeah, that's from Vinny. He's great. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Haleigh Fauci. You can find me on Instagram at Haystack McGroovy. And you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at PNemroff. As always, a huge thank you for watching, listening, and you know what? Sharing this episode, which I hope you do. You have officially survived the witching hour.